This is a Sports Catastrophe production.
Hey there, Heather, ho there, it's Jeff Cutter Diamond welcoming you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, January the 20th, in the year 1985, Super Bowl 19 took place between the San Francisco 49ers and the Miami Dolphins. So anyway, it was a big game. These two teams, they would have two great quarterbacks. San Fran would have Joe Montana, who was still a little early in his career, and Miami had the second-year dynamo named Marino. It was kind of strange how this matchup was at Stanford Stadium in Stanford, California, and Stanford's hosting college football, but not pro football, which is unusual. All that. So anyway, it was hype between Marino and Montana. I mean, the Dolphins were 14-2 in the regular season, were pretty good, and all that. And the 49ers won 15 games out of 16. So this was just an amazing thing to go on from. This was actually also famous for January 20th, 1985, because this was the same day as Ronald Reagan would be inaugurated, as January 20th is usually the day that the new president gets sworn in. So it was huge and all that. So it was an inauguration day and all that. This was also the first time that ABC would do a Super Bowl. ABC had done football games like the traditional Monday Night Football games in the regular season, nothing in the playoffs. But it was weird seeing ABC come in and do the Super Bowl. I mean, CBS and NBC every other year would do the Super Bowl, but ABC would join the fray. And it was kind of weird because, they've done Monday Night Football for 15 years and they had never hosted a Super Bowl. Anyway, so it was shocking that Stanford would get the Super Bowl and all that, becoming the fourth college football stadium to host the Super Bowl. Tulane Stadium hosted Super Bowl 4, 6, and 10. Well, 4, 6, and 9, excuse me. But they were the home of the Saints those 3 times. So technically the Saints played at Tulane Stadium, so you can't remember that. Rice Stadium was Super Bowl 8, even though that Houston didn't play at Rice Stadium, they played at the Astrodome. The Rose Bowl hosted 5 Super Bowls, which was amazing. They were thinking that Detroit and Dallas were going to be chancing it. It was weird how Dallas would not get the Super Bowl, all that. But regardless, it was huge and all that. So let's talk about the 1984 Miami Dolphins. They were 14-2. Miami actually had a dark tone before the season, as David Overstreet, who was a key running back, actually passed away in a car crash in June. The team would wear decals on the back of their helmets with number 20 for Overstreet. The Dolphins became the second team to get to 5 Super Bowls in team history, behind Dallas. So anyway, everyone wanted Dan Marino. In his second year, he broke almost every single season passing record. He put up 362 completions and was the first quarterback to hit the 5,000 mark, 5,084 yards passing. The passing game really opened up and all that. He put up 9 300-yard passing games and 4 400-yard passing games. He put up 48 touchdown passes, which really broke the record. The record was 36 back in 1961 with George Blanda for the AFL and Y.A. Tittle for the NFL for the Giants in 1963. A lot of people said that Marino and his offense would play in many Super Bowls and all that, because he could read the defenses quickly before sending up the throw. He had a good offensive line, led by Dwight Stevenson and Ed Newman, and he had not been sacked in the playoffs. The Dolphins had a number of offensive fruits. The Marx brothers, Mark Clayton and Mark Duper, were both pretty good. Clayton put up 18 touchdowns. Those 18 touchdown catches would be the new NFL record breaking the mark set by Don Hudson in 1942. The running attack was okay with Tony Nathan and Woody Bennett being there, mostly because David Overstreet was not there anymore. Reggie Roby was a great punter, black punter at that. But the Dolphins' defense was not as big and all that. They actually had the most rushing yards allowed during the regular season. But they had the Blackwood brothers, Lyle and Glenn, with A.J. Dewey and all that. The offense helped them. They put up 513 points to lead in the NFL. So the San Francisco 49ers were 15-1, becoming the first team to get to 15 regular season wins in a season. Now everyone knows the 72 Dolphins were undefeated, but that was only in a 14-game season. In a 16-game season, maybe they do get to 16, maybe they don't. Regardless, Joe Montana was fantastic. 3,600 plus passing yards, 28 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Roger Craig was a good running back and could catch the ball in the West Coast offense. Wendell Tyler came through as well. Russ Francis was a good tight end who recently passed away. Freddie Solomon and Dwight Clark were the wide receivers. And the offensive linemen were pretty good up front with Keith Farnhorst and Randy Cross. San Fran was second in scoring. So you had the top two guys around. But the Niners defense was what made things happen because they gave up the fewest points in the season. So that led to a lot of things going on. Anyway, regardless of that, they had great defensive backs. Ronnie Lott, Eric Wright, Carlton Williamson, and Dwight Hicks were good in the defensive backfield. Anyway, the Dolphins and Niners both had byes into the divisional round. The Niners had a great job. They took care of the Giants 21-10 and the Bears 23-0. So it was weird how the Niners outbeared the Bears before, the next season the Bears winning the Super Bowl. And the Dolphins beat Seattle 31-10, getting revenge for the year prior when the Dolphins were shocked by the Seahawks at the Orange Bowl, but they got revenge. And then they beat up on the Pittsburgh Steelers without Terry Bradshaw, 45-28. The Steelers were actually the team that beat the Niners and made them 15-1 instead of 16-0. At 33-3, with playoff wins, this was the most, and still is the most wins by the two finalists. So anyway, it was really huge and all that. The Niners would wear their home reds because they were the home team, and the Dolphins were all white. So ABC shocked a lot of people by doing this stuff. Frank Gifford was the play-by-play guy with Don Meredith and Joe Theismann as color commentators, which is weird because Theismann being part of the broadcast, even though he was an active player. But unfortunately, the 85 season saw him get hurt in that famous Monday Night Football game. Anyway. Well, ABC's last 6 Super Bowls were broadcast by Al Michaels being the play-by-play guy, not Gifford. So, anyway. Canada would get it on CTV and all of that. Now, Super Bowl 19, there were some popular culture things and all of that. So anyway, Any Given Sunday, the movie, saw a off-screen championship game with San Fran beating Miami. And of course, Super Bowl 19 was actually the focal point in the movie Ace Ventura: Pet Detective as Ray Finkel missed a field goal in that game that cost Miami the Super Bowl against San Francisco. So anyway, yeah, we all know about that and how Ray Finkel was the kidnapped the Miami Dolphins mascot and Dan Marino. So yeah, all that. So pre-game, Ronald Reagan coin tossed it and all that. So anyway, yeah. So the game, I don't know, that the Dolphins would only run the ball 9 times, which was a Super Bowl record for US. So anyway, it lived up to the hype and all that. Miami started off with a 37-yard field goal by Uwe von Schalman. San Fran would drive 78 yards in 8 plays. Montana touchdown to Carl Monroe, a reserve running back. It was 7-3 after Ray Wersching's extra point. Miami retook the lead as Marino would hit Dan Johnson, a tight end, for a touchdown to make it 10-7. So the Dolphins were up after 1 quarter. But the Niners took control because of Bill Walsh using the dime defense to slow down Miami's passing attack. Well, the Niners got a touchdown from Montana to Craig to make it 14-10. And then Montana would run a touchdown in to make it 21-10. Miami was forced to punt. And all that. Roger Craig would score a touchdown run 28-10. The Dolphins had a good run and all that. They would kick the field goal with 12 seconds left to make it 28-13. Von Schalman actually went for a short kick to run the clock out. But unfortunately, Guy McIntyre received the ball and fumbled the ball. The Dolphins recovered, and Von Schalman kicked another field goal to make it 28-16. So anyway, a lot of people thought that Miami was going to probably get the momentum. Unfortunately, it didn't happen, as a couple of bad plays by the Dolphins were costly. Ray Wersching did kick a field goal, make it 31-16, and then Roger Craig got his 3rd touchdown of the day, not by running the ball, but by catching the ball. Final score was 38-16. So San Fran put up 537 yards of total offense, which at the time was the record, and held Miami to 314 with 25 rushing yards. So their 38 points was the Super Bowl record at the time. They would obliviate that mark. Well, they have the mark. Chicago would obliviate the mark the next year, but then the Niners did that 55-point game in 1990. Montana was 29 for 50, 318 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions. Oh, sorry, that's Marino. I'm reading my stats wrong. So he got 300 yards. Clayton picked up 92 yards and all that. Fulton Walker was a good kick returner and all that. Montana did his job the right way. Picking up those 300-plus yards himself. The funny thing was that Michael Carter, who was a defensive tackle for the Niners, actually was the first athlete to win an Olympic medal and Super Bowl ring in the same year. He actually won silver at the 1984 Summer Olympics in shot put. And he's won a Super Bowl ring, so that's pretty good and all that. The Niners were just one-dimensional, they said. But yeah, the second quarter, the Dolphins were outscored 31-6 after the first quarter, so you knew something was huge. There was fog for much of the second half. So yeah, Montana 24 for 35, 331, 3 touchdowns, 0 interceptions. You knew he was going to get it. There were a lot of records set. Some records are meant to be broken but broken like years later. So anyway, that's how Super Bowl 19 happened, and that's how everything happens for a reason. Anyway, I'm Jeff. I'm gonna do.